In the later part of Willem Flusser's career, when he was starting to become known across Europe for his theories of photography and technical images, he moved to a small village in southern France and started creating imaginary animals. Between 1972 and 91, the height of his media theory writing, he composed short essays on fantastic whimsical beings such as the sulfonogrades, or bacteria that live off of sulfur, and the bibliographus, a parasite that inhabits the brains of scholars and digests written material for the larger academic community. In order to organize and catalog these creatures, Flusser founded the Institut Scientifique de Recherche Paranaturaliste, the Scientific Institute for Paranaturalist Research, or ISRP, in collaboration with visual artists Louis Beck and François Bazoli and engineer Abraham Moles. The Institute had the objective of studying, quote, the incapability of living beings to understand their own existence, end quote. The group of friends published their own writings at the Institute's press, located in Louis Beck's backyard, usually 60 copies per work, and were so successful in their paranaturalist endeavors that the Institute was recognized by the French National Center for Scientific Research. However, if we consider Flusser such a monumental figure in media studies, it begs the question, why would a media theorist at that stage in his career turn to such a seemingly fatuous activity? And considering he collaborated with visual artists everywhere, what is the importance of the visual empire in these scientific forays? We can begin answering these questions by analyzing Flusser's longer and most well-known animal work, his treatise on the Vampiritoides Infernalis, and comparing it to Catalan photographer Joan Fontcuberta's Fauna, an imaginary bestiary to which Flusser wrote a brief introduction. The Vampiritoides, albeit not an entirely invented animal, was still under study in Flusser's time and required quite a bit of imagination. In fact, it wasn't until the late 90s that the vampire squid was first caught on tape and later studied in more depth. Flusser's treatise is appended by Louis Beck's drawings of the beast, calling attention to the visual elements of a biological treatise. Similarly, Fontcuberta's Fauna, presented as a found area of photography from the lost archive of a Peter Ameisenhofer, a German biologist, and he uses and abuses of photography in order to catalog and display the different facets of each animal. Both works create an ironic and humorous illusion of realism, raising questions about the relationship between the visual and empiricism in scientific representation. Fontcuberta's bestiary also portrays a sense of irony in representing imaginary animals. The setup of the exhibit is filled with humor. As he describes, these photographs were found by Fontcuberta himself and a friend, Père Formiguera, while vacationing at Cape Wrath in the north of Scotland. A lugubrious residence turning to bed and breakfast, they stumbled upon an archive of photographic plates, annotations in German, instruments of dissection, bottles of formaldehyde, and some taxidermied animals that raised goosebumps. His friend's name is the first hint at the irony of the project. Formiguera is the Spanish translation of Ameisenhofer, anthill. His first name, Père, invokes the famous French play Ubu Roi, Père Ubu, written by the creator of pataphysics, Alfred Jarry. As this story is narrated on plaques framing the exhibit, the humor exacerbates as they find the life story of Peter Ameisenhofer. He was born in Munich and raised by his aunt in Dortmund. His mother had passed during childbirth, and his father lived in Tanzania as an explorer, hunter, and safari guide. His father remarried a nurse named Elsa, but both died while Peter was still young. His stepmother devoured by a lion she was trying to domesticate. His father from cerebral hemorrhage resulting from the violent strike by an elephant trunk. Another important aspect about this exhibit is that, despite being in an art gallery, the setup resembles that of a natural history museum, and it was exhibited in several galleries around Europe, but all of them art galleries. At the end of the exhibit, visitors were asked to give feedback, and a large number of people reported being upset by the exhibit, quote, as if it were trying to fool us, end quote, said one of the people. Nevertheless, the photographs are the focal point of the humor. The exhibit presents a snake with feet that's called Solenoglypha polypodida in 4 photographs. They're all black and white and dated 30th of April of 1941. The first shows the animal in a position of attack, erect on its 6 pairs of legs. The second shows it in a position of, quote, whistling, unquote, in order to attract its prey and feed. The third, it is captured by a Eisenhower in the laboratory, segmented in front of a plate to be analyzed. So here are the 2 pictures, part of this thing. The second one here is the one where Eisenhower has captured the Polypodida, and then later there's another one of it being dissected. The narrative created from these photographs is a capture and death, coupled with a scientific description that understands this animal as an extremely aggressive being who kills to eat, but also for the pleasure of killing. The overall narrative presents the zoologist as doing us a favor in capturing, killing, and analyzing this animal. The name of the animal also reinforces the scientific narrative, Solenoglypha polypodida, many-legged image of seriousness and formality, Selene and polypod. In this particular animal, it becomes clear that any attempt at presenting a zoological analysis of an object always presupposes some type of narrative. But the images themselves are the ones that create the illusion of reality, even though we know such reality to be questionable. The same happens with the Cercopithecus acrocornis, or a flying monkey with a horn. The textual material describes the place where the specimen was seen, how Eisenhower went on to an exploring trip he took to the depths of the Amazon in Brazil, and his encounter with the indigenous tribe who introduced him to this animal. When describing the manners of the animal, he goes into a long analysis of the Cercopithecus function in the indigenous tribe that holds it as a sacred being. The first photograph then presents the animal sitting on a sacrificial totem. The following ones are more blurry in an attempt to represent the animal's movements, taking off, searching for a prey, hunting, and flying. This introduces us to another level of writing in the text. The photographs, which usually allows us to see animals more clearly, here in fact prevents us from understanding what this particular creature is doing. The photos that actually capture movement, like this one here, in order to tell us how the animal relates to the environment, are so blurry that we need an appendix of textual clues and drawings to provide a better analysis of the Cercopithecus. Photography here, the most realist and objective medium, needs to be supplemented and clarified by the textual. In an essay Flusser wrote for yet another collaboration with Fontcoberta, he argues that since the world of images is actually a vision, we need a counter vision to turn the camera inside out like a glove, revealing its inside. The counter vision would thus be, quote, not a vision of the world, but a vision of vision, end quote. The vision of vision seems to be the image we have whenever these non-humans stalk our fiction and theory. In Flusser's Vampiratoides, the tension between visual and text are enacted in 2 different levels. First, through the juxtaposition of the textual treatise with the appended images by Beck, and here you just see the image, but there's a good 60 pages, 80 pages of text before that. And second, through the very self-reflexive nature of the text that constantly raises the question of point of view. It works as a biological treatise on a squid that at a time was impossible to be studied, hence had to be imagined. The impossibility, according to Flusser, comes from the fact that, quote, it is not easy for us to approach it. Humans and Vampiratoides live far apart from one another. We would be crushed by the pressure of its abyss, and it would suffocate in the air we breathe, end quote. Thus, no objective research could be done on the Vampiratoides. That sets up his entire argument as being contingent on the fact that it is only a partial understanding of an animal, an understanding that would speak as much about the observer as the object of study. The architecture of the book then resembles a zoology treatise, in which each of its 5 parts addresses a specific topic about the Vampiritoides infernales: genus, genealogy, world, culture, and so on. However, as Flusser moves through these aspects, he constantly compares them with humans. For him, both are part of the Euculomata category, within which animals with ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm are inscribed. Then he notes, quote, Euculomata were disposed to one of 2 evolutionary possibilities: to refine either the endoderm, the digestive system, or the ectoderm, the nervous system, end quote. Finally, he suggests that, as, quote, as ignoble as this may be, we have followed the first path, that of digestion, and Vampiritoides is the second, end quote. An irony here is created by separating humans into a special category that has refined its endoderm in evolution. Using the scientific descriptions, endoderm and digestive system, Flusser creates an illusion of a polished, privileged position in the chain of evolution, even though we know that what he means is that we develop our digestion in lieu of our intellectual capabilities. We can see how the irony and parody are central to this project. Their para-nature system brings to the center the question of point of view, of subjectivity, and of how much the seeing eye influences that which is seen. Flusser articulated the 2 main goals of the RSRP in his Ordre Nature par Nature, a manifesto-like piece that held as the philosophical backbone of the entire institute. And here's the main goals, quote, A, to criticize nature as it was proposed by the Creator, for example, to show the flaws and inconsistencies in the construction of galaxies or in the ears of mammals, and B, to propose the constructions of different natures than that of our Creator, that is, propose the construction of paranatures, end quote. But who exactly does Flusser mean by the Creator, a figure who he claims has become of an unbearable academicism? He answers, quote, this creator and inventor, in the old days identified as God, is the Renaissance bourgeois man. Before him, there was no nature in the sense employed by us, end quote. Following this line, the Institute understands that nature is a product of culture and not the opposite, just as reality is a product of perception. At this moment, Flusser suggests that we push forward one more step, and that criticizing nature in itself is not as interesting as proposing new natures. As he suggests, quote, it is absolutely ridiculous today to try and orient ourselves through only one nature when A, we know this nature was created, B, we don't feel well in it, C, we're starting to pollute it materially and epistemologically, and D, we're capable of producing better natures, end quote. And this task of producing alternative beings in nature is the main focus of the Institute, and exactly what Flusser and Fontcuberta are doing in these works. As he notes at the end of the Ordre Nature par Nature, quote, every para-nature needs to be underpinned by irony, a dangerous but questioning attitude, end quote. Hence, Flusser's main task in the Vampiritoides infernales is to displace the human point of view as the only form of view in evolution. He then creates an ironic commentary on human evolution by tracing a taxonomic comparison between humans and Vampiritoides. The second chapter in his treatise is highly concerned with the vampiroteutic position within the chain of evolution that constitutes the animal kingdom. He describes the genealogy of the phylum Mollusca and compares it constantly to humans in order to denounce how the taxonomic division we employ in the study of species is actually a human creation that privileges the position of humans. He starts by trying out our popular perception of animals by tying our popular perception of animals to the phylogenetic tree. Quote, the more disgusting something is, the further removed it is from humans on the phylogenetic tree, end quote. The humor is created by making this statement that is exaggerated and untrue that taxonomy is actually based on how much we think animals look good. However, this humor still reviews the taxonomy is created from the perspective of humans. We then come to see the biological studies always place humans in a position of superiority. As he then concludes, quote, as far as we are concerned, life, the slimy flood that envelops the earth, the biosphere, is a stream that leads to us. We are its goal, end quote. This is obviously an ironic statement. We're in fact not its goal. We just think we are. By making such an exaggeratedly self-centered statement, Flusser reveals the hubris of scientific language. Again, he recognizes that there are blind spots in his own argument. Flusser then suggests that this point of superiority is to be renounced. He suggests, quote, "For the remainder of this fable, then, the stream of life will not flow in our direction, but rather in the vampirithutics," end quote. He attempts to shift the point of view to that of the animal analyzed and to develop a theory of evolution that, unlike the ones in place, is not going to culminate in the human as the apex of evolution, but rather vampiritoides. As he states, quote, "According to human taxonomy, they occupy the 14th of the 23 phyla that constitute the animal kingdom. From a vampirithutic perspective, however, there are many reasons to regard mollusca as the most developed of all phyla," end quote. This new theory is going to privilege the aspects of the phylum Mollusca that are supposed to be their most advanced features, and will then judge others in this light. Likewise, the human has for ages constructed a theory that puts us in the use of reason and language as the most evolved. Fontcuberta and Flusser's choice of using photography and drawings as the main medium of their works invokes the nature of photographic realism and the empire of the visual. Photography is seen as having the power to represent the world faithfully, of bringing us one step closer to the world of animals and things. However, here, the case is quite different. Fontcuberta's photographs and Flusser's images actually brings us closer to the world of humans, and only to that world. It is as Roland Barthes in Camera Lucida, searching for a photograph that truly represented his mother and finding it in a photo of her when young, before she was even a mother. The world of images is not a step closer to the world of things, or the thing in itself. They are yet another layer of mediation, another imaginary vision. As Flusser suggests in Into the Universe of Technical Images, these images, quote, "are supposed to be maps, but they turn into screens. Instead of representing the world, they obscure it until human beings' lives finally become a function of the images they create," end quote. Whenever we imagine the world of other animals, the only animals we actually find are ourselves. Thank you.